How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Nerdy Basement, your home for all things comics, TV, film, anime, gaming, and pop culture. I'm your host, Ozzy, as always, and we got a lot to talk about when it comes to James Gunn, Peacemaker Season 2, Earth-X Salvation, and Darkseid. Yes, you heard that right. James Gunn spilled a lot of tea in a new interview with ScreenCrush, Boba Talks, and new Rockstars. So we're going to discuss all that we learned from those interviews in this video and what it all means for the future of the DCU. During his interview with ScreenCrush and New Rockstars, James Gunn discussed the immediate results of Peacemaker Season 2, the finale, and Salvation Planet. James Gunn confirmed that Salvation Planet is not setting up Darkseid's eventual appearance in the DCU, nor is it setting up Final Crisis, at least not yet. As we explained in our recent podcast episode, in the comics, Salvation Planet is a training ground for the new gods that is overseen by the Sod and his parademons. So while the material is there, the source material at least, Gunn clarified that we should not expect a direct adaptation of Salvation Run, so there will not be a direct connection to Darkseid and the new gods just yet. The key word here is yet. As I mentioned in our podcast episode, the Mr. Miracle series could also tie into Salvation Planet and the Salvation Run storyline that Gunn is adapting for the DCU. James Gunn also confirmed that he fell in love with the original concept for Salvation Run, which was pitched to DC Comics by George R.R. Martin. In that original pitch, Salvation Planet was meant to be an inescapable prison for all metahumans, not a dedicated prison to supervillains as we saw in the final version in the comic books. Gunn also mentioned liking the idea of supervillains building a society in that dimension and the practicality of that storyline in dealing with metahumans who escape from prison. This gives us an idea of how James Gunn plans on using Salvation in the DCU going forward, as the planet will not just be for supervillains, as we saw at the end of Peacemaker Season 2, as Peacemaker himself is not a metahuman or a supervillain. Anyone is a candidate to be imprisoned in Salvation Planet in the DCU. Gunn also confirms that Argus will be sending over metahumans to Salvation Planet and confirmed that this will factor into Man of Tomorrow and other DCU projects down the line, further growing the war between the government and metahumans. However, he did not reveal who else would be sent to the Salvation Planet down the line, but we also got confirmation that Salvation Planet can only be accessed through the QUC and that black holes do not lead to Salvation Planet. You also cannot get there by using a ship. This tidbit came to light because New Rockstars posed the question of whether or not Ultraman would appear on Salvation Planet given that he fell into a black hole at the end of Superman. Gunn stated that it was possible, but don't expect it. We also have to note that we saw a QUC door open into a black hole, so the question logically here totally makes sense. Salvation Run, Salvation Planet will factor heavily into Man of Tomorrow, which arrives next summer. Gunn provided a bit more insight about Man of Tomorrow and more, confirming that Salvation Planet, Lex Luthor, and Rick Flag Sr.'s relationship will all be important in the upcoming film. Gunn also confirmed that he is currently writing a fourth draft for Man of Tomorrow. He is working on Creature Commando Season 2, watching cuts of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which releases in theaters next summer, but he has yet to read the script for the first episode of the upcoming Mr. Miracle animated series. He also let slip out that he was in possession of a screenplay for Mr. Miracle, which would imply that the project would be a feature film rather than a TV show, something he quickly corrected and confirmed in his interview with Boba Talks that it was in fact an anime TV show that's coming to HBO Max. Staying on the topic of new gods, Gunn also provided some insight on Darkseid and what his personal plans are with the character in the DCU. He makes it a point to state that Darkseid will not be the big bad of the DCU right now, aka he will not be the overarching villain. Darkseid is much more than a villain. He is not like Thanos. He's also not keen on using Darkseid in live action right now either, because Zack Snyder featured Darkseid in his Justice League movie, and he thinks Zack Snyder's interpretation of Darkseid was really cool, and we also recently had Thanos in live action in the MCU. James Gunn would much rather have his villains be situational and thematic rather than overarching, and that villains won't necessarily be killed by the end of a film or a TV show. Gunn also provided some insight about G.I. Robot not being at the end of Peacemaker Season 2 or on Earth-X, and why Earth-X wasn't liberated by the 11th Street Kids. He mentioned wanting to subvert cliche expectations and wanting to dive deeper into the emotional crux of the characters that we were following, particularly Christopher Smith, aka Peacemaker, Adebayo, John Economos, and Emilia Harcourt. He said he found that a lot more interesting and everything else sort of fell into the background. Additionally to that, he did not have enough episodes to fully dive into Earth-X. As for G.I. Robot, Gunn states that he did not know that the character would be so popular. When the world finally got to dive into the world of Creature Commandos, that animated series, along with Peacemaker Season 2 and Superman, they were all complete and in post-production, and other projects at the time were being set into motion. He does acknowledge the popularity of G.I. Robot and says that they have plans for the character. He also confirmed we will see Checkmate again, but he did not specify when and where. And thanks to Boba Talks, we got a couple of updates for the upcoming Lantern series. Unfortunately, James Gunn does not know when the first look at Lanterns will be available to the public, but he does confirm that Lanterns will tie into Man of Tomorrow and will set up other things within the DCEU past Man of Tomorrow and for other projects coming down the line. He also gave some insight on the Arkham series that was shelved a couple of years ago, stating that the series is not being worked on right now. We also got an update on Batman Brave and the Bold. James Gunn revealed that there have been a lot of changes in that film that were not originally planned when the film was first announced. As for the Waller series, everyone has been having questions and wondering what's going on with this series, whether it was alive or dead. James Gunn has officially confirmed in an interview with Emergency Awesome that the series is still in development and that scripts are currently being worked on. He also went on to reveal that the series will address what happens with Amanda Waller during the events of Superman, Peacemaker Season 2, and Man of Tomorrow. This update in particular, I'm glad we received, because if you listen to our recent podcast episode when we covered the finale of Peacemaker Season 2, I brought this up as well. We needed to know what was going on with Amanda Waller, how this tied into all of these movies that were coming out or have come out. So I'm glad he confirmed that that show will address that and that it's still in production. Lastly, we got new information on the Constantine sequel with Keanu Reeves. James Gunn has confirmed talks about the sequel. He also confirmed that he's talked to Keanu Reeves about it. However, he has not received the script for that movie. It's everything we've learned from the James Gunn interviews, so shout out to everyone who was able to interview him. Huge congrats to you guys. We got a lot of good little tidbit nuggets from those interviews. It may not seem like a lot, but there was a lot of information that I personally got out of those interviews, but even if some of those were obvious, but I feel like there was a lot there that maybe a lot of people had questions about, and I'm glad he reached out to these YouTubers to kind of get that information out there. We had a lot of questions, and I hope he answered a lot of those questions and kind of eased the frustrations a lot of people had with the finale of Peacemaker Season 2, including us here at the Nerdy Basement. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you do not miss a video. It also helps the channel out. We'll see you guys on the next video. As always, stay nerdy, my friends.